Welcome to Politics for People Who Hate Politics. I'm your host, Lucy Steigerwald. Today on my exciting panel, we have what are now officially the regulars, which is Michelle, Montalvo, that is, Joe Steigerwald, Cory Massimino, and our new exciting person, Jayel Aheram, who I guess he deserves a proper, real person, serious introduction. He is a writer, and he is an activist, especially anti-war activist, and he was a Marine, and he's a veteran of the Iraq War, and he's a really kick-ass photographer who takes pictures of me looking cool. And one time he beat me at Drunk Risk in Los Angeles, so that's pretty cool. Yes, it's all true. Thanks for coming and being here in your tiny Google worlds today, panel.
Sure. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you, Jayel. I guess let's just start and get right down to it and see if we can save this show that has already been late and confused and technically awkward, but they all are, so I might as well stop saying that, I think. I guess our first topic I want to talk about was gun control stuff, because there was that horrible shooting last week in California. And I sent you guys some pieces, like the California is considering a sort of, they were calling it sort of a, oh my God. Basically if somebody wants to get a gun and somebody who knows them or law enforcement either can petition a judge and say this person is unstable or what have you and they shouldn't have a gun. It's sort of a restraining order. I couldn't think of the term restraining order. That's terrible. Basically, they're considering that in California. And in general, there's been some of the usual suspects editorializing and commentary and writers talking about what must be done to make this unfortunate thing never happen again. Do you guys have some thoughts in general about the shooting? I guess I'm always trying to go too broad here.
Sure. Shall I start?
Go ahead, Jayel. Yeah.
Okay, so with regards to the restraining order law that's being proposed in California, one thing that we have to realize, and the audience have to realize, is that California has one of the toughest gun control laws in the country, and it didn't prevent this shooting. So that's the environment that this law is being proposed. As a libertarian, my default position is no gun control whatsoever. But you're not going to be able to get rid of all the regulations that are passed in California. In fact, one of the first modern gun control laws was passed in California by I believe it was Ronald Reagan.
It was Governor Reagan, yeah.
In response to the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the historical kind of context of the how strict the gun controls laws in California came to be, right? So this law that is being proposed, which is to target people who pose a risk versus a blanket ban, even more restrictions on gun ownership, is frankly a little bit more reasonable. But there's a lot of problems, of course, with this proposal. Meaning, who gets to decide who pose a risk, and it's basically it becomes a punishment without trial.
Mm-hmm.
If you are deny gun rights because of people felt threatened, and there's no there isn't a trial to back that up.
Right. I mean, what are you gonna do? Just have hey, I accuse you of being unstable. You don't get a gun. Is there gonna be a jury? Is there gonna be a judge?
Is there gonna be a psychiatrist? And all of this implies, this kind of perfect trust in the system that any of these institutions that in other circumstances a liberal would say wouldn't trust, but suddenly they're gonna demand, of course we can trust it now in the holy cause of getting rid of guns.
There's a law like this, proposed every time there's one of these shootings, but you know, it doesn't seem to matter. The mass shootings account for less than 1% of all gun homicides in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're a big deal because it's, you know, that's what the news cycle wants to talk about, but in, you know, the scheme of things, it's a tiny, tiny fraction of gun violence, and laws like this probably, you know, they're not going to address the real problem, which, you know, what can you do? There is nothing really you can do at this point to, you know, prevent mass shootings.
Well, the ironic thing is, I mean, it's the same liberals that are like so anti-war. At least they were anti-war when Bush was in office. I don't know about now, but
Yeah.
they were so anti-war when Bush was in office and recognized, you know, what the government was doing overseas and how much of a violent, murderous institution it is. I mean, just looking at the 20th century alone, how many people were killed by governments. And at the same time, they want to put all the guns in the hands of this one institution and think that'll work out all right.
Right. The Gawker piece that was sort of aggressively reasonable by Adam Weinstein, who is pretty awful. He used to be with Mother Jones, and some Mother Jones people, you know, have their moments of being okay, and he was always kind of obnoxious, I thought.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had that laundry list of suggestions. One of them was, you know, sort of amusing, like all guns should be bright pink. Is, you know, harder to hide, and like they're not as macho, so suddenly that would do something. And he also suggests more cops. And he has this amazingly half-assed, and Gawker, by the way, has a ton of anti-cop, cop brutality type pieces. And suddenly in the cause of we need more gun control, all of a sudden cops can be trusted. And Weinstein writes basically like, oh, if you don't trust cops, then like advocate for better cops. It's the equivalent of if you don't like it, run for office, which is the equivalent of love it or leave it, you know? I mean, it's just the same old stuff.
Plus, it kind of ignores the fact that it's this whole focus, you know, every time it's a non-Muslim, you know, non-minority that we can scapegoat, the mental health issue always goes back to the fore, you know, when it's no longer about terrorism or something that you could blame on, say, like survivalists or domestic terrorism. It becomes a mental health issue. And what it is it's scapegoating people with mental health issues. And as a group, veterans are lumped into this category. And, you know, are we then going to be denying, you know, huge, you know, numbers of veterans to prevent them from owning guns in the state of California, which it has a large population of veterans, in terms of like just raw numbers. I don't think it's going to be a good solution, but again, there's a lot of problems with it. And one thing that the piece that they're arguing for the restraining order is that a lot of people with felonies are non-violent, you know, and are we then going to be, and they're already being denied gun rights to begin with.
Yeah, and again, mandatory minimums suddenly are like this great bipartisan cause where, for once, a bipartisan effort is not something horrible and statist, but they haven't gotten to, you know, they've been talking about drug mandatory minimums, and there's also firearm ones where even if you were carrying a gun during a drug transaction, and if you had a couple of those, you can get decades and decades in prison. And the firearm itself can add decades. And that's a prison issue, like a human rights issue that liberals absolutely have not touched because it does not fit the Salon.com agenda, basically.
I just want to point out, I think it's a misnomer for any of these people to be considered anti-gun, because all you have to do is ask them, how do you propose to prevent people from getting and owning guns? And you just have to look at that. I mean, more cops? How the fuck is that anti-gun? That's the most pro-gun. That's like the first most pro-gun thing you can have is to actually go into politics and work for the state. Once you work for the state, you cannot be anti-gun. You're automatically pro-gun because that's how the state works. So I just really loathe calling these people anti-gun because their whole solution is founded on using guns to enforce their ideas.
That is a great point, and I think
That is a great point.
That's a good way that we should talk about it to, turn the argument back on liberals a bit.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like arguing for like demanding a war on guns is another way of of ensuring that there's going to be more guns in the streets, and not just guns in the street, but guns in the streets in the hands of people who are never held accountable for violence that they bring upon their communities. And I'm talking about cops. So, I mean, there's that recent news about that kid who got the police threw a grenade in his crib. I mean, that's horrible.
It's not even a kid. It was like an 18-month-old basically. They threw a flashbang grenade into his playpen during a drug raid. Yeah. Sorry. Technical stuff is being a pain in the ass today, but I think we should just try to power through because we're patriots and stuff like that. Yeah, like a little more gun stuff. We have some other stuff to talk about, but another thing I saw that was actually worse than the Gawker piece was an LA Times editorial that basically said ban all guns.
Yeah, prohibition is where we want to go with this.
Yeah. Well, if the article was calling for banning all guns, I wish that it would also involve police weaponry.
Yeah, I mean gun control
that'll
for
make
cops.
it equitable. That
Yeah.
will make it equitable. Like I lived in Japan for a number of years, and a lot of the police there don't carry guns, and I mean I don't mind that. The worst the police can do is beat you with a baton.
Well.
It's that's fine with me, but
Is that fine with you being beaten by a police baton?
no, but at least you can fight back and punch him in the head. So
No, if you flinch, that's resisting arrest. I think that's the general rule.
And I don't think that what works in Japan would work in America at this point. You have so many guns on the streets. You have a lot easier ways to get guns into the country. I mean, prohibition is just such a ridiculously stupid, clickbaity kind of column to even propose at this point.
Well, I mean, what I want, which let's pretend that I'm for a law, and that law is if you're for banning anything, you have to describe exactly how you're going to do it, exactly what the punishment is going to be if someone defies that ban, and a bunch of other things. You can't just, I'm done with people who say, let's just ban this thing and call it a day. I know in California, they've done actual gun takebacks for people who had some mental health thing, restraining orders with domestic violence, and something else and these are guns, of course, that were legally acquired originally, because obviously otherwise you wouldn't know where they were and how to get them back. And basically somebody has lost their privilege to own guns. And as far as I know, there's been no tragedies during these takebacks and stuff, but the potential for that countrywide, including, northern Idaho and Montana, you think that horrible stuff's not going to happen? I mean, that's not, and it's still a bad idea. I mean, people got really tired of the Nazi Germany comparisons and stuff. And it's a little easy to be like, who else loved gun control? Hitler. But I think there's some stuff you can say on that issue. I don't know how to really articulate the sort of reasonable paranoia I feel about this, but you just don't want governments to have your guns, and you don't want them to know exactly who has a gun. That should just be a basic rule of being, fans of freedom. I don't know.
The thing that's so funny about this focus on weaponry, because it's easy to scapegoat, right? Scapegoat, something, a real object. Whereas we're not demanding that politicians pass a law that prevent them from passing laws which are more destructive, I think.
That would be a great law, though.
I know, right? Anti-law regulation. But yeah. Speaking of laws.
Yeah.
Can I bring up one more thing about the mass shooting in California?
Oh yeah, there's a ton to talk about. We could talk about it all day long, but
Well,
go
just
for it.
the one thing I was going to say is technically it's not a mass shooting
It's a mass
because
stabbing.
only 3 people were killed by a gun. So
I
3 people were stabbed and 3 people were killed by a
Right.
gun. And the FBI defines it as 4 more people.
Really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
So it's not even a mass. It's mass murder.
Right.
It's not, as far as the FBI goes, actually a mass shooting.
Knife control now.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. You don't need that 12-inch knife.
I do.
5
I
inches
need
or
to.
less.
I need to.
You know what's so
skin
funny
into
too about regarding especially gun control in California is that it's so easy to bypass. You can bypass a registration, you can bypass all these things, if you have the means to do it. Yeah, so there's a little bit of the whole it's kind of inherent inequity in it.
And Weinstein wanted to tax guns more and make them prohibitively expensive, so the poor people can't afford them.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's another liberal tenet right there.
That's how everything starts too. I mean, that is how drug prohibition started. Like marijuana prohibition, it was basic. It was a tax. Any inroads into prohibition.
That's funny, isn't it? Now it's the drugs being taxed is now being touted as like a liberal solution to the prohibition.
That's
right?
another great point, Neil.
There's
Yeah.
too many good points, not enough time.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
Moving on.
Hey, I'm the host. Don't make me come over there. I guess another thing I want to talk about briefly, like there's good drug war news, where a House committee voted to get rid of funding for DEA, basically to stop the DEA from messing with states where medical marijuana is legal. And this is just one of those things where I'm too far gone to be like cheering, and more I'm just like, oh my God, the low standards of joy that the government gives me, you know? It's more drug war progress, and that's awesome. And libertarians, like, I guess something I want to ask is, do you guys think that that we can relax now? You know, I mean, I feel like there's been a little too much, cheering about the end of the drug war lately, when it's, marijuana is legal in 2 states recreationally, and like, there's still so much to do in terms of fixing all of the evils of drug prohibition that I kind of feel like social stuff can go backwards, if The Handmaid's Tale / the Iranian Revolution taught us anything, it's that social progress can actually be turned backwards. How optimistic do you guys feel about stuff? Like,
I'm just laughing at Michelle's tagline.
Oh, what does she have?
Snowden revenge porn fan.
Oh, wow. That's dark and confusing.
Well, to your point, I'm optimistic. I'm happy, obviously, to hear the news. I don't know how the bill will do in the Senate, but I was reading a piece by Connor Friedersdorf where he mentioned that a lot of this is due to more people living in states with marijuana or medical marijuana laws, and so now politicians are not necessarily changing their minds on the issue, but just more willing to please their constituents on that specific issue. So, I mean, it's baby steps.
I mean, it's real progress, and I've been a libertarian long enough to know that when nobody was talking about this except people named Paul. Cory, I'm sorry, dude, but like all the bad audio is coming from you, buddy. If you renounce communism, that might help.
I'll speak in place of Cory then, if he was trying to.
Yeah, let's attribute whatever Joe says to Cory. Insult all leftist radicals, and then say Cory did it.
I was just going to say, I think that, to crib a phrase from global warming alarmism, that the tipping point has been reached as far as the drug war.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you can't relax and get complacent about it, but I think there's been enough progress, and with millennials and all the other young people coming to the voting age, that I really don't. There's no possible way that we're going to see some sort of blowback against marijuana.
Really?
Especially marijuana. I think it's over the edge. It's just going to be, it's like gay rights. I think eventually, we're at the point where everyone's going to just start doing it, and it's just going to become, commonplace. And
I can't wait for the for the organic what's that, the ethically formed pot farms. Yeah.
The green pot,
the green pot,
organic, GMO free,
heritage too.
Crafted.
No, it's just I just want to point out too that
yes.
Yeah. I just want to point out that it was Rora Bacher who introduced this rider, this budget rider, to this bill. That's amazing considering he's one of the original drug warriors. So
really?
I'm just gonna throw that out there. Yeah, it was.
Well,
I can't pronounce his name. Rora Bacher. Sorry.
Well, it's like the dude who wrote the Patriot Act, who, I mean, fuck that guy till the end of the earth, but he also was worried about NSA spying. I mean, like, when that kind of thing starts to happen, you know that either things are really bad or they're turning around. It's sort of both,
Yeah.
They can learn. Even politicians can learn, Lucy.
I don't know if I'd go that far. My technical difficulties all over the place.
I don't care how bad the sound audio is.
You fucking anarchist! All right, Cory, lay it on us.
I'm going to say, while I appreciate any and all kind of progress that we get, I try to go by a general rule that we should not relax or, I guess, be complacent until every ounce of the state is gone.
Jeez. All right.
well, that's a nice sentiment, but
it's bracing, yeah.
Small baby steps, I think, is the best way to go about this. And you start with marijuana, and then you get onto the harder drugs, and eventually there's too much money to be made. People, all the taxes, it's been going great in Colorado. There's no increase in violence. And, other places are going to see this, and they're going to see a big dollar sign on every joint, and they're going to realize that they can make a lot of money doing this, and that there's not really any adverse effects.
So it's a gateway drug, basically, marijuana.
Yes.
I think we should find a way to link sick kids to more issues that we want changed. Usually I'm one to argue that dead kids make bad laws, but since sick kids really worked in pushing the medical marijuana stuff, politicians can't just dismiss sick kids as easily as they can, your friendly neighborhood stoner. So yeah, more sick kids.
Hey, maybe we can use that sick kid. Sorry, not even sick kid. He's in coma now. To talk about police brutality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, hell yeah. You kidding me? Do you see what they did to his face?
Oh God,
that kid's gonna be disfigured for life. Yeah, it's horrible.
I didn't know there were pictures.
They had a photo of where the flashbang landed. It landed right on the toddler's, not even a toddler, on the baby's pillow where his face was.
Yeah.
I mean, that is some effed up
That's
stuff.
your less than lethal weapons for you. All they do is maim toddlers, so it's totally fine. I have more things I wanted to talk about. I did a Vice thing about Mendocino, California. There's a DA over there, and he has instituted this policy where you can buy your way down from a pot felony to a misdemeanor with there's like a certain standard of like how many plants or how much packaged weed, and you can buy your way out of it. And this struck me as interesting because like there's a type of liberal who tends to they argue about the justice system and they argue that stuff's unequal, which is all true. But then they start kind of acting like we should, before it's equal, we should arrest all the white Hollywood types, which is the wrong way of like for their drug crimes. Like put Lindsay Lohan in jail for 20 years until we can get the black poor people out of jail. And that's like the wrong fucking way to go about it, because you don't fix inequality by punishing the more privileged when the entire system, the entire prohibition of the substance is fundamentally a wrong policy. So with the Mendocino County thing, I was kind of like of two minds about it. I think it's a very bad policy. I think it's kind of a cheap, fake reform. But I'd also, I don't know. I mean, what would you guys think about this?
It's stupid. Where is this in California?
Mendocino County.
Is that by like Hollywood or?
No.
Jayel, do you know?
No, I've never even heard of the Mendocino County. I believe that's like near San Francisco.
Is it? Okay, so it's not like Humboldt, but it's not as.
But I mean, it's still.
Yeah, it's. I think I heard it. I think it's a very wealthy area too.
So basically,
that's
just interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
money. I mean, when was the last time Lindsay Lohan went to jail or any Hollywood celebrity for a little bit?
Just recently.
Drugs anyway.
Shit.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
For like 30 days.
Hey, don't hate on Lilo.
Rich people can get out of this stuff regardless. I mean, they don't need to.
That's true.
Yeah,
we don't need it ingrained in the law because they do get out of it. That's a good point.
Yeah,
and the same thing with Weinstein wanting to tax guns. It doesn't help anything, and it for liberals who supposedly care about minorities and poor people, this is a pretty shitty way to help them. It doesn't help them at all.
Well, okay, so we already know that there's inherent inequities in our justice system that even without this law, the people who are more well off are able to afford better lawyers, better lawyers they can afford to pay the fines, everything. So there's already inequities in the system to begin with. I'm just gonna mute it really quick because there's a train.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point from all right, Cory, go ahead. This has evolved into anarchy in the pejorative sense.
How's the sound? Good. I guess maybe I'll play devil's advocate here. This seems, while it's a shitty reform, like, relatively speaking, is it possibly better than no reform?
I would say no, because this is.
I agree with Cory. I'm actually with Cory in this one. It's
really?
That, yes, there's the inequities, but at the same time, arguing for the status quo. At least you're giving people a chance to remove the felony. Yes, it's expensive, but the solution is not to offer people to buy themselves out of a felony, but rather to make it cheaper. That's a more sensible solution. Not to not have a way to pay for it, but rather to just make it more affordable, or at least make it like graduated rate. Like you basically pay depending on your socioeconomic the status. So if you're poorer, you pay a lower fine to get yourself out of a felony. Because having a felony is such a it means more than a thing on your record. It means no voting rights. It means you can't even get a job at McDonald's. I mean, that's how serious it is. So even like the most basic lower entry job, you're denied that. Which actually incentivizes people to go back into to do more crimes or something, or to actually go to worse crimes. A lot of people have felonies because of nonviolent drug possession, and having that felony in them, leads them towards a path of worse crimes, actual crimes, that's not drug related.
I mean, you guys are making good points, but this to me feels a little bit like the NSA reform bill, though. It feels like the kind of
non-reform bill.
Well, no, worse than non-reform. it ingrains a policy into law in addition to doing some sort of half-assed measures. And this is about making money for the county. And it's combined with the asset forfeiture. Right? Sorry, Joe?
It's all this money is just going to go to the cops anyway, and they'll just, you know, prosecute minorities more. They'll be able to hire more cops so they can, you know, punish the poor people, and the rich people will.
That's a good point.
Just get off scot-free because they're rich and they're going to get off scot-free anyway. But now the state gets more money, so.
I mean, it's and the guy, he's not a reformist. Like I just feel that he thinks that he's being very clever here, and he's not fixing anything. He's just trying to keep the money train rolling in one way or another.
We're calling them out on it.
Yeah, even though Jayel and Cory, I mean, it's true. Like I
bunch of pushovers.
Let's go get door on.
Well, it's never. The thing is, it's never a clean. There's never a clean solution, right? When you're talking about the drug war, I mean, it's a war on drugs. There is a whole set of laws and regulations and policies, not just federal. You're talking about state. You're talking about city. You're talking about county. That all kind of interconnect with each other. That do punish people who can't afford to have a felony on their records. And you're right that I do agree that it does incentivize specifically Mendocino County to go after more people so that they can be charged, so they can slap more felonies on their records, so that they can get more money or whatever. But
and the incentives already they're already there.
But it's minor though. But like charging someone, putting someone through trial, they lose more money, and so it's not like it's it's an incentive for cops maybe, but I don't think we should like reject it outright in terms of just
I mean, that's why I think the only reform in almost all of these
it's not
areas
reform, it's just a fix. It's a minor fix.
No, I'm saying the only way to fix things is to get rid of a law, not to make a new one of this of this type.
But the question is, what is it that libertarians are proposing that will ease the lives of people now? It's like saying this argument against this being able to buy out their felonies is, it seems like also an argument against clemency and the other thing, the pardons.
No.
Oh, you can say,
I don't think it's the same type of thing.
Pardoning and clemency is not a reform. You're not fixing the problem. Well, it's gonna ease the lives of real people right now. So that's my position, and not because I think it's the main solution, but rather there's some Joe out there who could possibly like solve their ease a little bit of burden in their lives. That felony record, and if they're able to have an opportunity to do it, why not give it to them?
Again, like I'm so rarely of two minds on something, and I find myself being that way on this because, like, it may help individual people. Like, I don't want to be like, fuck that guy, he has enough money to buy himself out of a felony. But again, ingraining it into policy is where the danger lies.
Yeah, definitely. It's a temporary fix for people suffering now.
Yeah. I don't mean to sound like a liberal with my objections to this. It was kind of creeping me out. And my vice editor was like, no, it's great. It's good. We don't like this. And I was like, yeah. I had a couple more topics in terms of laws that don't work. Because that was the, and God, a lot of them are in California. Jayel, buddy, your state is all,
I know.
It's all messed up. There was another advice piece that I noticed.
We have nice weather, though. That's the thing. So.
You do have nice weather. Sex offender registries and how they're really terrible. But I mean, like, I don't know.
Public urination is considered a sex is reason enough for you to be put in a sex, offender registry. That is ridiculous. I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah, because I got a ticket once for like publicly peeing on it's like on the 10 or something. I mean, it wasn't on the 10, it was like the 60 or something. It's like one wait, it wasn't the 10. But since I wasn't driving the car, it was my friend who was driving the car that got the ticket for public urination.
Is your friend now a sex offender?
I have no idea.
Probably.
I have
that's
no
not
idea.
hilarious at all.
So,
That's
I'm just
not
happy
good.
I'm not on the list. So
Well, that's
ridiculous. Flashing your boobs and I mean, so does it mean that everyone in the Folsom Street Fair is a possible sex offender?
everyone in the Castro is definitely a sex offender.
Yeah.
That's official Republican policy, probably.
Yeah, but it's like, and then you were talking about the German law about the photos.
Mm-hmm.
And just jumping into on that one, it's like
Someone read their
unenforceable.
topic list.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's very I think it's unenforceable. I mean, the guy could have multiple copies.
It's so unenforceable. Do you want to? I'll tell the people about a German
Sure.
court basically said that this woman who sued her ex-boyfriend for having naked pictures that she consented to at the time, and she I guess asked him to delete them, and he said no. They'd broken up, but he still said no. So she sued him, and this German court said, well, you have to, using various horrible European type law justifications, said, oh, you have to delete this.
How are they gonna make sure that he deletes it though?
You can't.
Like, are they gonna look at his hard drive?
I don't know.
That opens up potential of the police violating other women's privacy. What if he took naked photos of other women?
Mm-hmm.
Now their boobs and things are gonna be shown all to these strangers. It opens up more violations. Anyway, I think it's just all silly.
And
that
also
is
like
the sex offender list.
The slate tone of the German thing piece was very like I don't know.
We need this.
It was like very fake neutral. Like we should maybe consider this maybe.
Ridiculous.
And it reminds me of every once in a while.
I have so many naked photos on so many people's phones. It's not even funny. So, I mean, I'm partial to this idea. Like maybe I could use the law in the state to make them delete that because I know this is why I'm not running for office.
You never sent
There
me
are way
naked
too many
photos.
skeletons in people's smartphones.
I'm feeling very unloved here. No, please don't send me your naked photos. Please don't do that.
You want me to Snapchat it to you?
No, I don't have a Snapchat because I'm not 12 years old or yeah, or Ricardo.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I don't know what's happening anymore. Basically, okay.
I won't mind getting a Snapchat with Snowden.
Lucy,
Right, Michelle? Right,
let
Michelle?
the muted people speak.
Only Cory is muted right now. He's unmuted.
I was just enjoying the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, watch out, CNN. Actually, we're better than CNN still, so that's.
Patriot hot. That's Snowden, by the way. He's not just a patriot; he's a patriot hot.
That's a terrible portmanteau, and you need to stop trying to make patriot hot happen, Jayel.
It will happen. A patriot hottie, patriot hunk.
It's not gonna happen.
That's so French.
Yeah.
I already implicitly quoted Mean Girls. We have one viewer. We keep having one viewer and then I keep leaving, which is really not inspiring my confidence in terms of hosting.
Are you recording? Are you going to put this on YouTube?
It's going to YouTube right now, yes.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
This is our worst show by far.
No
offense,
offense,
Jayel.
How long is this?
I have no idea.
I think we're like 45 minutes or something.
We are not. We started very late.
Okay.
Cory, do you have any words to say, or do you just hate us all deeply?
No, I love you all very much, and I just think we should get to the next topic.
Oh wow, that's a good.
He's a little bashful about
But I mean, we haven't really talked about.
Talk about superheroes, right? My favorite topic.
Oh my God, Jayel! I am the host of this
sorry.
show.
Sorry.
Okay, we all hate Europe and sex offender registries. Is that agreed?
I love Europe. I just never, I flew through Germany once.
I could see private sex offender registries possibly being okay.
That's an interesting super nerdy NCAP or whatever the hell you are type of question, yeah.
Creepy, you mean? I'm pretty sure Google has a list already.
Probably so.
Right?
I mean, the thing about, you know, like this is a very like Jacob Salm of Reason type topic to cover. He's written some good stuff on this, where like you can literally go to prison for decades for possessing child porn, and like you know, and you can go like 4 or 5 times longer to prison for possessing child porn than for actually like raping or molesting a child. And that's, I mean, it's so warped. Even without like the usual like public urination or flashing somebody really like all that. Even like just fundamentally, the sex offender registry is bad on all levels. And you know, if either somebody's done or they're not done being punished for their crime. And I'm really troubled by the continuing life-ruining punishment that, I mean, those people might deserve that, if some of the really bad guys, but that doesn't translate it to being not a god-awful type of policy.
Dude, I'm awful when it comes to like child molesters and rapists. I'm like, death.
What do you guys think of?
It's like, not in jail, just straight up just death.
Well, let me remind you of the usual innocent man or woman problem there, Jayel.
Well, yeah, you're right. You know, so it's you're right, but it's at the same time, it's like, you know, it's not like murder where the victims are, you know, they can't point who you know who did the crime. It's these you know, child molestation and rape. You know, they ruin lives. They ruin the lives of the people they victimize. You know, it's super traumatic, and it changes, you know, who you are as an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do
with.
You
ruin one life. It will. You know, death is the only thing that's honestly just.
Okay. No, you can't do that. I'm sorry.
Fuck the death penalty, but
I'm not saying the death penalty though. I'm just saying like a person, like actual
vigilante
moral scale.
I'm much more amenable to
vigilante, just in terms of like moral, you know, what is just. Now, I'm not talking about what's legal. I'm talking about what is just. It's death.
Sure. Yeah.
The problem is that we can't rely on the state to carry out that morality. I don't trust the state to carry that out. So what do we do? I have no fucking clue.
I'm like your Block's argument where he says that the people who actually like if you own child pornography on your computer, that isn't a crime, but if you take it, then you're a criminal. Like if you're the one that's like producing it and distributing it. He says if you own it, it's just on your computer and you just bought it or something, or someone gave it to you, and that's actually, he says you're not actually violating anybody's rights.
I'm sort of amenable to that, but there's some concerns with that as well. I mean, of course, Walter Block says that because he's Walter Block.
So with that argument, for example, let's say there's someone who chops up people for food, right, and then sells the pieces of fingers and flesh to other people. The other people who's, you know, doing the cannibalizing shouldn't be legally liable, even morally liable.
I think that's what the argument would imply. Yeah, only the person who
that's
killed.
That's horrible.
Well, if you're not, I mean, if you're just buying something, then you're not violating anybody's rights, right?
That's such a libertarian answer, and it annoys me. No, seriously, it's like the whole thing. Oh, you know, we're not the ones engaging in slave labor. We're just buying the stuff from slave labor. We're not culpable, liable for this morally. You know?
Yeah, it's
terrible. We're just saying you shouldn't be legally culpable. You're definitely like a disgusting human being for doing any of those things. But
not totally. When I talk about stuff like liability, I'm not talking about legal or the state at all. I'm talking about entirely like an anarchist morality, if you're liable or not. So in that case, it's like, yeah, you're definitely liable.
And speaking of disgusting human beings, people are now getting smarter about how terrible sex offender lists are, and there are more stories coming out where parents who refuse to acknowledge that their children don't fit into this perfect image that they had of them, and are, you know, in same-sex relationships with young, you know, with same-age couples where they're really young, are using how terrible these sex offender lists are to their advantage in a revenge fashion. Like, well, I don't think my son should be dating another man, so I am going to file these charges and hope that this person is considered a sex offender. And I've been hearing a lot of stories of that lately, and that's another terrible thing.
There was that lesbian couple. She was like 18 years old, and her girlfriend is like 17.
Yes, I think that was in Florida, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible.
A lot of that ties into the fact that the entire justice system is not based on restitution to the victim, if there is one. Of course, sometimes there isn't even a victim. It's basically you've broken the tenets of the state, and therefore you're punished. And since they've gotten rid of the whole malum prohibitum versus malum in se, malum prohibitum being you've broken a law that is a law, and malum in se is basically you've broken like an actual moral sort of thing. And the state, it's one of those things where the state has taught people, I feel like, to just accept this. Oh, that's a law, so you broke it, and that's bad. And that's the pro-law propaganda of life, and the bad restrictions on drugs and sex, selling sex, and all that sort of thing. Just it teaches idiots that there isn't a moral question behind this sort of thing. It's simply, oh, well, you broke the law.
That's the problem with the way that, the state tries to replace tort law with criminal law at every corner, because what criminal law does is it places the state and the victim in focus, or the state and the criminal in focus, and forgets about the victim, where tort law makes it between the victim and the perpetrator. And that makes the victim actually whole. But with criminal law, it just makes the state better. And that's why it's so fucked up. And it creates all these victimless crime laws, and especially encourages a culture where all of a sudden any law, like it's immoral to break a law. Like that becomes something that people believe.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking break every single law.
They do believe that too. That's the thing. I mean, you get that everywhere, and I've lost the ability to answer that argument without just total scorn and loathing, because, oh, really? It's against the law? That's so interesting. I've lost. And conservatives usually offer that. Immigration, it's a classic example. I'm just I've lost the moderate translation skills to actually be
oh, it's illegal. It's illegal. It's a crime.
Yeah.
Who cares?
If we make a complaint about civilian casualties, and the response is always well, it's war, so whatever.
Yeah. Or they should have picked a more responsible father in the Anwar al-Awlaki's teenager.
Robert Gibbs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was charming. Yeah. Oh God, the state's terrible, and the legal system is terrible. All right, kids, let's wrap this up with a bracing superheroes conversation, shall we?
I have breaking news about superheroes.
Is there such thing as breaking news about superheroes, Jim?
Always.
Of course.
All right, well, this is technically the section where we talk about things that we like better than politics.
X-Men.
And let's open it up to, what is your favorite superhero?
The X-Men, the Phoenix in the X-Men, because she destroys things and eats the sun, and she's fabulous, and I don't know, it's just terrible. No, I'm serious. I love the X-Men in terms of what they represent. Compared to the other superheroes, the X-Men don't really have secret identities. They're hiding, not out of it's their identities, their main identities, their mutant identities are their main identities, versus Spider-Man, his main identity isn't Spider-Man. It's Peter Parker. That's who he is. He chose to be Spider-Man. Same thing with Iron Man. He chose to be Iron Man. Captain America is Steve Rogers. He chose to be Captain America. And there's a lot. You guys are super aware of the whole, it's X-Men as an allegory for the gay rights and minority movements, and
it started as a civil rights allegory, right? And the movies kind of made it more about gay rights. And I think that works a lot better than when True Blood tried to make the weird gay rights allegory. Because whenever I would watch True Blood, I'd be like, oh, well, but
you watch True Blood?
I did for a while, yeah. It's terrible.
Oh my God, it's terrible. I love it. Final season this summer.
But it works better with X-Men because it's basically powerful people. I guess a vampire can drink synthetic blood and all that sort of thing, but it's powerful people, who can do ridiculously powerful things but aren't necessarily going to. And they don't have these inhuman impulses to suck blood or be any more evil than any human.
They're all humans. Yeah,
yeah exactly.
And they're not powerful people. They have abilities.
Mm-hmm.
They're not empowered. They're marginalized. So even though they have like these amazing abilities, they're powerless. Which is totally different from, say, Captain America. Again, Captain America was working for the state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, except for Thor. Thor is working for like
Asgard or whatever it is.
Asgard state, the Asgardian state. So,
the X-Men are a fantastic analogy for any kind of minority rights, especially because if you look at the dynamic between Professor X and Magneto.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get really fucking nerdy here, guys. Watch out.
I love Magneto. Please go on. I love
Magneto's
Magneto.
awesome, but I'm gonna bash him.
Okay, go on.
Yeah.
Because they represent two ways to accomplish social change. And Professor Xavier represents this kind of peaceful way that focuses on education because he has a school.
Kind of boring, though. I'm just saying. I'm just saying this whole incrementalism that Professor Xavier thing is like literally the thing that grosses me the fuck out as a libertarian when it comes to liberals. You know, this whole let's work with the system, we'll change it, and then Magneto, I think is being the realist here. You know,
but he's also violent. This is the violent path to social change. He advocates violence for Xavier.
No,
he's basically prejudiced against humans.
I don't believe that's violence he's advocating. You know, granted, that's the way the X-Men show, right? Well, what he's saying is people to fight back. That's not violence.
It's Malcolm X.
When the mutants are being, you know, subjugated, being experimented on, being targeted, when you fight back, that's not violence.
But he's not fight back.
Righteous self-defense.
He's saying preemptively try to take over the humans.
Yeah, I mean, he's at this point he's racist against humans. I would say.
I feel so left out here because I'm a huge fan of anti-heroes. I have Rorschach and Deadpool behind me.
Oh man.
You know, it's nice to have comic book characters that like in real life we're always presented with people who pretend to be nice and do things for the right reasons, and I like Rorschach and Deadpool because they have no issue being themselves and being assholes, and I'm a big fan of the anti-hero, and it seems people are becoming more interested in that persona with like this is not comic related, but the popularity of Breaking Bad and Dexter. You have all these kinds of personas coming out. And,
I mean, would you say the X-Men are would you say X-Men are anti-heroes? Because they're not really trying to save the world. They're trying to survive for the most part.
Yeah, they would fall into that.
Yeah. Which is why I completely dislike Superman. I mean, honestly, I'm just gonna throw it out there.
No one likes Superman. No one does. I don't know a single person.
I've started to like Superman because I just read Red Sun and it was really awesome.
Yeah. That comic is so good because Superman sucks. The reason that comic is amazing is because Bruce Wayne's story in it, and I like Batman, so
I was really excited when Bruce Wayne showed up and is like, oh, it was so good.
It's really, really fantastic.
I feel like we shouldn't spoil that for the people, the swaths of viewers now.
So I'm just gonna geek out with this whole just Hollywood relationships between the production studio. So you have Spider-Man that's owned by Sony, the X-Men owned by Fox, and, the Fantastic Four as well owned by Fox, and then everything else, including like Captain America, Iron Man, the Avengers, owned by Disney Marvel Studios. But they're all Marvel characters. And then you have in this last movie, Quicksilver, and I think they showed. The little sister is Polaris. I think it's supposed to be
so nerdy.
That's the little sister. But anyway, she's not going to be in the Avengers. But Quicksilver is also going to be in the Avengers. And the thing is that they're not going to mention the fact that Quicksilver is Magneto's son. So, but
they alluded to that in the movie. I mean,
but not in the Avengers. But that's the connections right there. I can't wait for the Avengers versus X-Men, mega pick.
That'd be pretty solid.
They need to do it before. They needed to do it before Hugh Jackman becomes too old.
I just want a decent Deadpool movie. That's all I want. I wanted the Ant-Man directed Edgar Wright movie to come to fruition, but
he walked out.
Yeah,
he's not doing it.
There
which
were
is
a bunch
terrible.
of rewrites that he didn't approve of, and I'm devastated about that. I won't get my Dream Avengers movie.
Yeah.
I love.
I also like the X-Men.
Well said, Joe. Yeah, I really just was like reveling
Dark
in
Phoenix saga.
the amazing
saga.
how much I love Ian McKellen as Magneto and how much I love Patrick.
So
I just want to watch.
So old.
Oh, he's so wonderful though.
He's like he has like that thing around his neck, and it's just
simmer
like,
down.
girl, you're losing it. It's like you need to put some like lotion or something. Shit.
That's unfortunate.
Here's some sunscreen.
All right. Well, I feel like we all sort of, well, besides Michelle, like everyone except Michelle kind of picked the X-Men in terms of superhero choices.
I'm a big Deadpool fan too, and I hate what they did to him in X-Men Wolverine. That was the worst thing of all time.
Avoid Ryan Reynolds like the plague.
I love Ryan Reynolds too, so that hit me even harder. Right here.
Oh,
they're making a Gambit movie, standalone movie.
What? Why would you do that? No one cares about Gambit.
Gambit's awesome. What?
Gambit's
What?
cool.
I love Gambit.
What's his face is gonna play him now?
Someone
Oh,
else.
Channing Tatum, right?
Channing Tatum, yeah.
Oh no, yeah. I see. That's why I purged that from my brain because I was like, oh, cool, Gambit. Oh, Channing Tatum. Okay.
Right, I forgot about that too. It's like, it's a Michael Bay film too. Like, here's one. Any of you guys anime fans? But
Okay.
Michael Bay is.
Wow, I have no idea what's
Genesis-
happening with the show anymore.
Neon
Take
Genesis.
control, Lucy.
I don't have
You have the
control.
mute button for a
I
reason.
never had control. That's
Okay.
Mute everyone.
I'll mute you
I'm
all.
done.
Okay.
I think Goku is the ultimate libertarian.
What was that?
Who?
Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
Oh God, I hate you all so much.
If you don't
Except
like
for
Dragon Ball
Michelle and Joe.
Yeah.
The rest of you nerds can go straight to hell. Except for you're all wonderful anarchists, and I have solidarity with you and all that sort of leftist bullshit. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, technical difficulties, tangents. And the best conversation being about the X-Men. So the show really did have it all. If by all you mean nothing good. Thank you for joining me this evening, Michelle, Joe, Cory, and Jayel, and audience. Tune in again next time, possibly next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.